Welcome to the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. My name is Jacob Cooper, host of the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder podcast. Today's guest is none other than Susan Allen, world renowned medium, intuitive, and animal communicator as well. Susan's going to be sharing how she really discovered her gifts, the current work that she does, and we're going to be taking a lot, particularly, those who are wanting to really know, how do we connect to our loved ones in spirit? Do our pets continue? Susan will be able to really answer a lot of some of those questions that we may have. So without further ado, we welcome Susan Allen to the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. Susan Allen, thank you so much for being my honored guest in the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. It's such an honor to have a friend and colleague here, and I love you and your work so much. And I know my viewers will get so much, get so much information here today. So tell us a little bit about, your work, and the kind of stuff that you do, and maybe we'll kind of also discuss how your gifts unfold because you do a lot, all things healing, all things uplifting, others and animals. So yeah, take the floor is yours. Tell us, my viewers, a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for that beautiful introduction. But it was you that reached out to me at the beginning of my journey, and we became friends so many years ago. And you
Yeah.
were just this bright light and a
Oh.
loving and kind and generous person.
Mm.
So, how it kind of started, I always kind of had this sensitivity when I was a child, and it was almost like my parents didn't nurture it. They kind of thought it was odd.
Mm.
But I really didn't, honor it and hone it because of many things, being born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, by second generation immigrant parents. It was always about get another job, be somebody, this is what your focus was. It
Mm.
was, we know that all too well. And, study hard and all that. And it kind of, I think a lot of, well, it just not to digress, but I am going to digress because it's so important. I feel like I want to even tell you and your listeners. I heard, I heard that a study was done. NASA wanted to figure out how they could hire geniuses. Did you happen to hear this? It was a little
No,
study.
I didn't hear this, but please share this. We're
Yeah,
open
it's
to new
really
input, new
it's
stories. Yeah.
beautiful, and they wanted to like get figure out how to find the geniuses. So they started in a kindergarten, and all the children at the same time were all genius level, and they followed these children through high school because I guess they were gonna like recruit them for
Mm.
NASA. And by high school, they were so dumbed down, they were barely able to get through their grades. So what does this tell us? That imagination, just like, our Albert Einstein said, is everything, and love and light is really everything. So I found that study to be incredibly riveting for me because as a child, I couldn't get through books. I think I started reading, you would understand this. I started reading, my first self-help book was like 9 or 10.
9 or 10 years old. Wow.
Yeah, and I
Talk
I
about an old
discovered.
soul, man.
Yeah, and these were the only books that I could get through. Heightened spiritual
Mm.
literature,
Wow.
heightened spiritual literature. Um, Christian Larson, Pathway of Roses, like these were the books that I would take with me and read and study. And in school, I couldn't focus. It was only on, you would think like that's maybe how spirit started to get me ready for
Mm.
this work. I could not focus at all in school.
Hmm.
I had ADD. I had reading problems. I
Mm.
would read when I was in grammar school. There was this, approach. I went to Catholic school my whole life, which maybe injured me even more.
Hmm.
But there was this approach to reading, and I was failing on the reading skills because
Mm.
I couldn't focus at all. But these books, these spiritual books, like all the heightened spiritual books, were the ones that I would finish and I
Mm.
would reread. I would finish them and I would reread them and I'd
Wow.
take notes. And because I felt like that was the way that I would survive I was so sensitive. Yes, I grew up in a screwy family, but many people do. Many people come from great trauma.
Mm,
But when you need these kind of books to latch on to anything that's significant in your own humanity, that's pretty significant, I think, at such an early age when you start reading these books.
mm. Oh, wow. You make a great point that for a lot of empathic children or adults, it could almost seem like they're drowning in this world and there's nothing to hold on to. And for you, it seemed like these books were that thing to hold on to latch on, and that allowed you to have resolve and resilience, in an environment that you from what you said, just kind of felt a little bit misplaced. And it just didn't seem like the value that you had intrinsically was being shown or seen by others. And that was not a failure on you, but a failure on the world, as this NASA experience shows. We're all born with
Yeah.
this sense of brilliance, but at some point that dies down because this belief system that we're not good enough feeds
Hmm.
behaviors. And so
Yeah, exactly.
I can't think of, I mean, I'm sure there's so many kids who have an inverse unfortunate story where they grew up in those types of homes, and we had similar backgrounds. Just, I was born in a religious environment, yours Christian. Like, parents may be tuning in here and they have kids, and all those kids are gifts. Is there any, like, I know we could do a full episode on this, but you've someone who's lived the talk and have walked the
Yeah.
walk. How did you personally get through this? And maybe what tips could parents have in here to allow their child's gifts to unfold so that they are that brilliant star that they truly were born to be?
Well, these are really good questions. I feel like even when I hear stories of people that grew up in foster care, there was always that one teacher or
Mm,
that one person that would believe in the child so much that kind of encompassed. For that, I had my brother who was 11 years older than me. For some
mm,
odd reason, my other two siblings are both deceased now. It just felt like we were raised by four different sets of parents, if you can understand that analogy. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Each of us felt like we had different upbringings, but he kind of was my savior in a way, because I would see him and he was always light and bright and loved me, and I could just feel the love.
mm,
I think with raising kids, the best thing I could say is just love, just overwhelm them with love. I don't think there's a I don't, I personally, my brother said this once, we don't think children, animals, or people can be spoiled. Only fruits and vegetables can be spoiled. And I'm not saying like, don't raise these, horrible kids that want everything. I'm just saying, like, for me, the love and moving into the light has always been the cure for everything for me personally. And
mm,
I feel like people that I mentor privately, it's the same for them. It's like, the love bombs, really
mm,
help so much. Because even in like good therapy, it's the love that you give somebody. It's the I think you call it transference. It's that unconditional, beautiful love
mm,
that you give somebody that really heals them. You
mm.
know,
So unconditional love and just loving kids, not so much for what the checklist is, but for
correct.
but for their own being.
Yeah.
So that makes total
Just
absolute
love and
sense.
acceptance. Well, acceptance is key to love, but accepting them exactly where they are in that place. Because my feeling is with life, as you know, and all of us know, nothing ever stays the same.
Mm,
It just never. We're always fluxing. It's always in a state of flux, and we're always in a state of change, and we're always in a state of growth. We'll be in stagnation, and then we'll be in wealth, and then we'll be not so wealthy, and then we'll be and, it's just that is life. That is what we're here to be part of and witness. But we're in a state of flux. That's what it's about.
wholeheartedly. I remember a couple weeks ago, one of my colleagues asked me, "How are you doing?" And I said, for the first time in my life, everything is perfect. And once I said that, I know, oh God, there's some, and obviously, that's when you feel everything is so good. That's when the boat is going to be rocked because in a
Jake, you're
way,
so funny. Yeah.
you're ready to level up. But in therapeutic practice, I think what you're describing is going with the flow. That's
Mhm.
really a big term, like going with the flow,
Yes.
not resisting what is, but being flow ready and
Yeah, and
acknowledging what is. Yeah.
I have such a good story. Like I personally know somebody, I'm not going to say who that is because she's a really good friend.
Mm,
But for years and years and years, she posted about the marriage that she was in and how amazing it was and her anniversaries and how the love language, it was like so over the top. It was
mm,
unbelievable on social media. It was like, wow, what an
mm,
amazing relationship. So now, as a person looking at social, like with everything, we always think that life is better and we don't have the right life. Well, just fast forward, she divorces him, and I
mm,
and I just sat back and listened, and it was an amazing story. She told me she was never happy,
mm,
and she went back to her high school sweetheart, and that's now they're married. They just got married. Her high school sweetheart, being married to the wrong person for 15 years,
mm,
and on social, saying how amazing the marriage was, and it was, I thought they had for sure, they traveled all the time. So it's not, you can't compare yourself to somebody else because it's never what it looks like. Oh, my earbud
mm.
just fell out. It's never what we think it is. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
always for me, it's, I have to work on myself in order to see the change. I spoke about this yesterday. I did a group event, and we had 155 people sign up. 60 came, which was wonderful. And I really felt like I had to come in and talk about the only work that we're here to do. And, our spiritual father, Wayne Dyer, said it, is to give ourselves joy and be as joyful as we are, because that's how the real change happens. That's how, life will happen in a way that we need it to happen, not that it's going to be a need rather than a want. So when you make yourself happy and you're in a position in your life where you're the most that you want to be, and sometimes people can't figure that out, and I'm like, try everything. Like I went to a sewing class, me going to a sewing class, I really kind of liked it.
Mm,
It was like meditative, and my grandmother tried to teach me to sew when I was little, but I couldn't focus,
mm,
and I like it now. And do I go every time? No. Do I have a lot going on in my life? Yes. I have clients, I
yeah.
have groups. So, but it's like try things that you wouldn't ordinarily think that you like, because you don't know what's going to bring you that. Oh, here's a joy spark, or
Mm,
here's an opening to be like a child again.
mm. Yeah, I mean, sometimes we look for tools thousands of miles away and we identify things as being spiritual, but we get so rigid with that interpretation that we forget it's all in our own backyard. And sometimes the things in front of us that seem just so simplistic lead to the most breakthroughs in our lives and just our
It's always
passions.
us. It's always
So
us.
it's the spirituality that we have in other sense, I feel, is a life that we have in front of us, not far away from us, and what makes us happy. It's catered. I love that you mentioned Wayne because you're mentioning an orphanage before. And I know he was, from my understanding, bounced in and out of orphanages, but he always used to say, I was the richest kid in the orphanage. And they said, why? He said, because of something like my attitude or something like that. He understood
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
and this was a concept, that's been broadcasted by so many, like Viktor Frankl and all these types, where it's just that inner mind is where that freedom lies, not so much the external, because as we said, the external, and now we know it more than ever, is always influx. So for you, I know you mentioned and I know you're terrific at what you do. You have a high demand, but you work in a very different sense, in a sense that you don't just work with quote unquote human beings, but you also connect, to animals. Like, how did that
Mhm.
all start for you? And why do I not see more intuitives being able to read animals? It seems like a very niche role, but does not make sense to me why, if you're intuitive, you can't pick up on it. But I don't know. You're the expert in that field. Yeah.
No, I feel like it is kind of niche, to be honest with you, because
Mm,
I've had amazing mediums like reach out to me and go, you're really connecting to the dead person in the spirit world that picks up the animal. And I'm like, no, I don't do that. And well, how are you doing it? Well, I actually tune into the soul of the pet, you know, and I talk to dead ones as well as living ones. Like I'll just be on doing a mediumship reading for somebody, and all of a sudden their cat will jump on their lap because they want to have a conversation or they feel the energy change. You know, you asked the house. I think it was a past life that I did this for sure, because I came in this way. Like as a child, I was, you know, talking to animals, and I always felt my dad, when there was an issue in my house, he had the wherewithal to take me to Coney Island, because we lived in Brooklyn, to a petting zoo. And I always felt different around animals. So even if like now I feel bad, if I have a bad day or I have a bad moment, I open like something on social about an animal, my vibration completely changes back.
Wow.
So it's always been a thing for me. And just by sheer the grace of God, I had this amazing little dog. I got her in 2006, and I thought, ooh, you know, I hate my job. I was recovering from a big surgery. And my brother said, you better start thinking about work. You got to heal. Take some nonsense class on the internet. Because I was all about making money and working, and you have to produce. And I was driven. And I took this silly class on my iPad. Well, I had like the ice compressing machine on me, and it was an iPad class of animal communication. And what was astonishing to me, and I still think about it, is the teacher said, okay, you know, just let's meditate now and open up the photo of the pet and write down what you get. And she went around to 10 people, and some people said, I didn't get anything. And some people said, very like, I got this, I got that, you know, the dog doesn't feel good. And when I went to my writing and I read it, and I never felt like a writer ever, it sounded like a Disney novel. And I have journals and journals and journals filled with pet readings, because when I started in pet communication, I was so insecure because it had to be perfect. It was an animal, they can't speak. I wanted to make sure that I was conveying everything that the animal really wanted me to convey. So I would meditate for half an hour, open the picture for half an hour, and then write for another half an hour. So it would be like 90 minutes before I even would get on the phone with somebody. Now, let me just tell you, that's how it started. This silly class. I thought, oh, my friend, she's so cute, and I'm going to just take this silly animal class. And it opened up everything for me. So it was also what I feel, the gifts come when you walk through your fear. Because I was terrified of having a bone surgery, because as a 9-year-old child, I had a bone surgery. And it was very barbaric and hard as a child to have a big bone surgery. And I remember having so much pain that I kept putting off this bone surgery that I really needed. And I remember I spoke to a healer, and she said, just get through this. Just feel like this is going to be okay. And let's send it a lot of light. She even came to the hospital.
Wow.
And she said, there's going to be a gift in this. And I thought, oh, a gift, you know, I'm just going to. She was so there for me. I feel like I owe her everything, you know. And I came out of it, and I was so psychic from walking. And this is what I attribute it to. When you walk through the most fearful things in your life, there will be an opening for growth. So
say that one more time. That's a beautiful statement. I know my viewers really need to hear this.
Yeah, it's a really big deal. This is a really big deal, because I just walked through another big one, and I'll tell you about it. When you walk through the things you fear most in your life, there's a really big opening and gift at the end of that. It's huge. And when I realized that, I had a client invite me to Paris for my birthday, and then we were going to Lourdes, and I don't like to fly, especially alone. I would always like drag somebody, pay for their ticket. I mean, I was just crazy. I didn't want to be claustrophobic. I didn't want to be trapped. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid to die. I just don't want to be trapped. And I went by myself. I got on a plane and went
Wow.
alone to Paris. Now, this is not a 5 hour ride to New York. This is a 10-hour ride with a 9 hour time difference. I went by myself. I had the most amazing time.
Mm,
Then I got on another plane from Paris, went to New York, did 2 events in Manhattan, saw private clients in New York as a medium.
mm.
And I came home and I just came back from 20 days in Scotland and the UK, another really long flight, although my husband went on that one.
Wow.
But it's like walking through my fears, walking through, whatever your fear is, if you could walk through that,
Mm.
there is such a huge gift and a huge opening.
Well, absolutely. And unquestionably, I just today took a 4-hour training in what's called trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, or TFCBT. And this was
Wow.
a series that I've taken for the last, several days. And what you say is so spot on, because one of the biggest things that we speak about in TFCBT is clearing the wound, not running away from it, but going there. Because when you do it, that's where there's a lot of breakthrough. And in our world, we accommodate our anxiety or our
Yes.
avoidance behavior. We just said, oh, let me be gentle. No, really, the anxiety and fear goes down long term through the direct exposure. Like you going on that plane, the short term spike of anxiety is there. But long term, those fears are incredibly dissipated and you feel just a weight off of you. And I think that's so crucial in our world that really avoids or accommodates, their own mental health and just tries to just, foot around everything. So that is
and
incredible
and
that you
drug
said
it
that.
up, drug it up, drug it
Yeah.
up. It's like hit your
Self-medication.
drugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the way to go. Is really facing it. And I
Mm,
know that I have friends that struggle, like won't get on planes, and I try to help them, and they're just like, no way.
mm,
It's like this thing, this thing. Like my friends, my woman I work out with, she's got really black hair. She's my age,
mm,
and I said, you would be gorgeous in gray hair, and she literally flipped out on me. Like there's so much there, whatever your fear is,
mm.
aging, gray hair, flying, it's like try it. You might really like it.
And it's usually not as bad as the big bad monster that we have in our heads. Like for you, it's like, oh,
No.
I'm sitting in a chair, I'm on a plane, I have my breath, there's some food in front of me, maybe there's a cool person around me.
Yes.
And sometimes a conceptualization of it is incongruent with the reality basis of what you're dealing with. So,
And I also really like I put a lot of light on it. Like I saw the light
mm,
going to Paris. I saw the
mm,
light on the plane. I saw the light in front of me. And it was like every interaction I had was so pleasant, and
mm,
I really worked on it. It wasn't like I was just going to wing it. I
mm,
said to myself, you have these issues about claustrophobia. You don't like to fly. You're going to put light on it. You're going to work with the light. You're going to be the light. You're going to become the light, and you're going to see the light. And it was like the
mm,
woman that took me, she said, she called her husband back in Florida and she said, you're not going to believe this. Like people in Paris walk up to her and ask her
mm,
what she does and who she is. Like
mm,
the Parisians are famous for not like loving Americans.
mm,
And
mm,
her husband was like, really?
mm.
It
Yeah, yeah.
was a
People
great
pick up on energy.
experience.
Yeah.
Yes, we are all energy. And that's why I always say, like, with what's happening in the world, right? You can't
Mm,
do anything about it. You can only work on you. And if
mm,
you're going to focus on everything outside of you and the news and
mm,
the tragedy and that, it's going to be really bad for you. And what
mm,
happens is, if it's bad for you, now you're affecting your family. Now you're
mm,
affecting your neighborhood. Now you're affecting your city because it's a domino effect,
mm,
really big domino effect. You cannot change anything that is happening out
mm,
there. The only person you can change is you. And then by changing you, it's like the Marianne Williamson said it in I think in the Course in Miracles. She said when Jesus walked into a village, the whole village changed, just his presence.
mm.
So it's all energy. It's all energy.
Right. And as we know, not to get specific, but we can't kill an ideology. And this ideology has been going around for a while where
Mm-hmm.
people get caught up in what's I like to call the outside of the storm versus the eye of the hurricane. And I think really when you're in the
Exactly.
eye, that's when you have this inner clarity, this inner sense of peace. You understand that your energy is that domino effect that affects the next, the next, the next. And that's what we have to face. Are we externally connected or are we internally, really connected? So yeah. Oh, beautiful.
I so believe that. And a lot of this is it's memories. It's bad
Mhm.
memories for people. It's karmic. It's memories that are
Right.
happening and they're not cleaning up the karma.
Right.
So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to go back to my animal communication.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A big contrast because I I wanted to highlight that because I know certainly I've had my share of pets and I know that's a microcosm of others, but
Right.
when I lost those pets, that was easily the most difficult loss and the most intense acute grief that I've ever
Mhm.
experienced. So for you, like how do you work with clients who may be coming with you and they may really feel this degree of emotional distress and they really are latching on to just hearing that bit of evidential mediumship with their pets? And do the pets also come through differently than, let's say, human souls? Like, how does that work with you and your
It's
interpretation
so
of the
funny. Like
messages?
I was thinking about that. I felt like you were going to ask me that question because I guess because I'm psychic, right?
Oh,
But the interesting thing about with the difference between animals and people is 90% of my business is people,
mm,
10% is animals. And I have no idea why, except people have needs. And
mm,
a lot of people come to me after their dogs have passed. A lot of people come to me right before their dogs have passed to know that it's the time frame.
mm,
And I have this ingenious thing that happens. Like a girlfriend called me and said, I don't know what to do. I go, you'll know in 4 days. And on the fourth day, she knew that was the day she'd have to put him down. Either there was some kind of behavior change. And I think that's my intuitive ability that I
mm,
can center in with the pet and talk to the pet, but I am connecting directly to the pet. And how it's different is I get more excited about pet readings than I do about people because
mm,
it's not quite as draining, although my
mm,
mediumship is pretty outstanding and amazing. And well, I don't say it's amazing. I hear what people say about me and I'm like, did I say that? Because I don't
mm,
really remember my readings, which is a
mm,
gift, but I can
right,
feel energy. I can
mm,
feel energy, and it's usually not the dead person's energy, it's usually the person I'm reading for. So I'm so
mm,
empathic, I can feel that person's energy. With animals, they're so light
mm,
and amazing. And they tell me, like, they'll give me evidence. I read for a guy that found me from the George Norrie show, and I'm going on George Norrie again in December. I'm so
wow,
excited.
wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, they invited me back. So it was so funny after I was getting off George Norrie, good guest, you'll be invited back. And I thought, did everybody hear that? Apparently everybody heard it. He said, good job, first guest. And I was like, I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning doing readings.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, long story short, a guy found me, an older gentleman in
Mm,
Arizona, and he had no kids, but his wife had children from previous marriage, and this
mm,
dog was his whole world. And the dog passed away and they signed up for a pet reading with me. And I said, just like, I don't know where I get it from.
mm,
I said, your dog said he's with his mom and he's really happy. And he's like, no,
mm,
and I felt like I don't let it stop me because I know what I'm hearing is true. I
mm.
trust that. And about an hour later, they wrote to my assistant that Susan was right. He called the breeder to find out about the mom. That's how
Mm.
much he didn't believe me.
Wow.
And that was just one instant that he didn't believe.
That the dog
And
is with its physical mom, not like
his real mom,
his human mom. Wow, so dogs.
the
Yeah, wow,
dog
okay.
mom.
Wow.
So the breeder said that the mother of this dog that was in heaven passed away an hour before my reading with him.
Oh my god.
And it
Wow,
was
wow.
like, wow, like I knew, I trust, but I'm not going to argue with somebody and waste their time with me.
Mm.
I just go, okay. And I go on to the next and I go on to the
Right,
next.
right.
And that's kind of how I do it. And the guy wrote, and it was just lovely because I was able to help him with his grief. So it is much harder, getting back to what you said, it's so much harder when you don't have the physical presence of the pet any longer. Because we're always connected to them. You know, it's like being connected to somebody that you loved in the spirit world. They can always hear you and feel you and see what's going on in your life. And usually, like, my thing is that's kind of why every generation does a little better, because you've got these loved ones in the spirit world that are helping you.
And when your clients hear that evidential piece of information from a loved one or a pet, I'm certain, eventually, like, their life is transformed in a way. Like,
Yeah.
yes, they're still grieving, but now they have something tangible to hold on to that will
Yes.
reframe how they view, their loved ones in the afterlife is, and that's huge.
Yeah. It's I I think that it's the thing that healed me was mediumship, because I had tons of therapy. Probably I was going to the wrong therapist. Maybe if I knew you, or you probably weren't even born yet when I was going to therapy. But I just think that good therapy is good therapy, and bad therapy is super bad for you.
Like anything else, yeah. You've
Like
got good and
anything
bad, yeah.
else, I agree. But mediumship really shored me up and healed my life and helped me heal other people, which is, I think, the main purpose why you're here and I'm here is we really we're supposed to help heal others, because I don't, how I survived my childhood, not to go into all the traumatic things and episodics that I've endured, but there's like no reason why I'm here flourishing and thriving and doing good work in the world. It's really kind of spirit that got me here to this point.
Spirit, absolutely. But I also think the adversity and your being able to handle it was a gift that you really were able to
That's the
own.
gift. Yeah.
I think that's something that you mentioned. Like, there's a lot of people that shy away from that, but you're able to find, a lot of gifts through these adversive experiences. As a medium, do you believe in like a blueprint in a way? And is that something that you connect to in your life, that you feel like a lot of this is pre-planned, in a way? Is that something that you ascribe to?
Do you mean like karmic?
Karmic, I know there's a lot of people that just discuss like the dichotomy of free will versus destination, and if you will. But do you feel like for your life, like a lot of this was, just selected, like the parents that you had, the circumstances that you had? Do you feel like all of that was like selected on the other side, or is it just like a random kind of thing?
It's really hard to imagine that I would select the mother, the sister, and the grandmother that
Mm,
I had. I just that I
right.
just
I mean, not
it's
necessarily
very
you, but
hard
maybe,
for me
yeah.
to figure that out and say, oh yeah, I definitely signed up for that.
Mm,
But and it's really ironic that it's not really ironic. I think it took me a really long time to figure out
mm,
that the people that I lived with were ultimately nuts, and I probably would have been better off being raised by a pack of wolves than being raised in the family that I lived in.
mm,
It took me years because I was like, I love them and they're wonderful. And, I loved them and I still do.
mm,
But I really had to unravel a lot of what was put in my head. I was always being told how bad I was. And
mm,
it was constant. And it was because they were really flawed beings.
mm,
But as far as, so I think surviving and then thriving
mm,
is kind of where I'm at. It's like you survive that and then you learn how to thrive.
mm.
And the only way we learn how to thrive is through the self-love and the self-care. I mean, that's kind of everything. And putting ourselves first.
Absolutely. And I also think in a way you've allowed a lot of those painful moments to really fuel your purpose. And I think from,
Possibly.
potentially those experiences maybe have allowed you to be more empathic or understanding with others who you
I think the
encounter.
understanding and compassion, I had one of the mentees say to me, she did 3 rounds with me.
Mm,
And for all intents purposes, I love doing it. And she just said, she called me trauma aware. I
mm,
think because what saved me and helped me more was like the love that I got from the spirit world and from my angels, and the loving, strangers that would show up and were kind to me. It was really through that I really, and of course my brother, I always had him to talk to.
Mm,
Um, I think that's how I kind of transmuted the darkness into light.
mm,
And I remember once I had a mediumship reading, and I kind of think that that's how I ended up becoming a medium, because I loved going to mediumship readings.
mm,
I loved it. And I just felt like I was in a different zone when I was
mm,
getting my readings, because I really think I was becoming a medium, where I always
mm,
was, and I was just getting woken up. And I really do feel that if you're led down the path of love, your heart begins to open and you start to only speak about love and the light.
mm,
I really do believe that.
mm. A, kind of like a brightly connected life. And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
seems certainly that's where you're vibing at. But I'm wondering for you and for viewers to really tune into, do you have as like a specific practice that you have or like a daily ritual? Because there's so
Mhm.
much around us, and I know you could speak to so many of this. Like, is there any specific rituals that you could recommend or that you have yourself to get people to really be that light embodiment, to connect to that light and protect themselves?
Yeah. Well, for sure, meditation is key to
Mm,
healing. I mean, it healed parts of my brain that I don't think I could have
mm,
healed in any. And you talked about cognitive behavior therapy. Only I found those kind of therapists when I needed them. Because
right.
for me, therapy had become just talking about the problem instead of being in the solution of the problem.
Right.
And
We
I
we we
can't,
yeah, we call that the
you know what I mean?
cows. Well, we call that the
Right.
cows, which is the crisis of the week. The acronym, but instead of focusing on specific interventions and not just having like a coffee conversation with someone, but real specific evidence-based practices, I think that's what,
Right. And
is
that's what
important.
I feel meditation did for me.
Mm,
And I wasn't even trying to be medium. I had really bad anxiety,
mm,
and I had a very dear friend. He's deceased now. He was a light worker, and he said, "You need to meditate. You have to become the tortoise. You've
mm,
been a rabbit your whole life." And I was like in my 40s doing late 30s, early 40s before I became a medium. I was like doing my to-do list in one day. It was like I
mm,
was a doer,
mm,
and I had to make things happen. And I was always chasing my career that I
mm,
wasn't really happy in.
mm,
And what I really I knew I couldn't meditate. I couldn't figure out how to do it. But what I
mm,
did do was I gave myself a mantra, because he taught me, don't give yourself something that you can't relate to or you don't understand. So I would just do I'm love and I'm light, because your brain needs a
mm,
mantra to hold on to in order to meditate. Otherwise, you're going to be all over the map. You're going to be thinking about your to do list. You're going to be thinking about your work day. You're going to be thinking about shopping or picking up your kids from school. It's always
mm,
going to be something to take your focus off just showing up for the spirit world and being there for God, being there for that moment in time when you just shut down your brain. And that's when I think I really like it. Within 18 months, I was psychic. I was talking to the spirit world. I was, it was just a culmination of all of that, all put together. And for I remember this medium said to me once, "You really didn't live through it. You really like died,"
mm,
and that's kind of how it feels. Even though I did not have a near-death experience, I almost feel like I did,
mm.
in the sense that I couldn't have lived through all that, and I really was a phoenix that died and rose from the ashes.
Mm, mm. It's remarkable because what you're describing is a concept that Carl Jung speaks about, which is the two phases of life. And I know Wayne Dyer was very big on this particular concept, which is the morning of life, which is the doing, or the cultural myth that we're programmed hardwired, and then the afternoon of life, which is in the state of being, of flow, of
Mhm.
presence. And I know you probably see this, like we have a concept called a midlife crisis, like I'm sure you have, where you check off every single box of that list and you're still empty and miserable because that checklist does not work. The doing does not work. It is within the being. And it seems like that's when you were able to really shine and that second phase of
Yes,
your life
yes.
unfolded beautifully, you know.
Yeah, it's the being. It's not in the doing. It's the
Yeah.
just and accepting life as it is, not as you need it or want it to be.
Right.
Just
Amazing.
being in acceptance and being in gratitude, like
Mm.
that's really the biggest thing is how about you just be grateful for waking up this morning? How
Right.
about you just grateful that the sun came out? It's just like these minuscule acts of that really empower you and get you where you want to go. I
Right.
just really believe that. It's what creates everything.
And I'm sure you're able to pivot too. Like you're a human being and you have your moments. Like, do you try to like catch yourself and pivot? Like, because it's
Oh,
very hard to be like perfect. And I think a lot of people give up
oh
on
my
themselves
God. And
in
it's
this
so,
practice because of that. Yeah.
it's in it, you do give up on it and it's annoying. And if you're in a relationship that they know your journey and they have a journey, it's like you do that for each other too. And, it's annoying when you haven't caught yourself and you wake up and you're like, oh, my hip hurts or I don't
Mm.
feel good or I got to go to work or I'm sneezing. And my husband will look at me and he goes, how about you're just grateful for waking up? And I'm like, shut
Mm.
up. It's like,
When in
for
that
you.
moment, you're not feeling that. Yeah, it's the last thing you want to hear, but
No, of
it's not
course
what you
not,
want to hear, but what you need to hear. Yeah.
because you're in the human condition. I
Right.
mean, I'm not a saint. If I was a saint, and that's another thing, please, there are no gurus. It's in
Mm.
you.
The
It's in
guru is in you.
you.
Yeah.
The guru's in you. There are no gurus. Like these, okay, I just don't even get me started. Like to take somebody and make them think that you are it and they need you is probably the word. I think that's a sin. I
Mm.
think that we're here to teach people, to empower them,
Mm.
to learn how to trust themselves, to trust their own intuition. It's what all my teaching is about when I do my one-on-ones, my mentorship. It's what it's about. I don't want you dependent on me. I want to give you the tools so you're dependent on you.
Mhm.
Because then you could just be alone on an island and be okay. I mean, that's what the gift is underneath it. Underneath
Mm.
everything is to be okay with you. Because ultimately we are born alone and die alone. And we are all in a world where we're just, as Ram Dass said, walking each other home. But we
Mm.
are alone. That is that's the thing. Like no, we are by ourselves. We are all alone. Just because I have a husband doesn't mean I am not myself and I'm not by myself. I am here for me. And that's what I really want to encourage people.
Yeah. Do you feel in a way like this inner practice has allowed you to like the person that you're living with? Because I heard someone said, like, you can never be alone if you like the person that you're living with, and it
I
makes
don't
you.
think that that's true at all. I think we
What I'm
are
saying,
alone.
if you
You
enjoy,
want to like yourself.
if you know what I'm saying, if you enjoy yourself, how could you be alone, right?
If you
That's what.
enjoy yourself, how
Yeah.
could you be alone? Because human nature is such that somebody will always disappoint us,
Mm.
especially our spouses and the people that we love the most. They can crush you just
Mm.
by one little thing if you're that dependent on them. But if you're independent and you feel good about yourself, and I'm not saying this is a practice that happens overnight. God knows it took me like 25 years to figure this one out, but it's the work in progress and those little steps that you start to take and make that become everything.
Yeah.
And those little baby steps that you take and make will end up being like that rock underneath you that will lift you up. You don't need anybody else. You don't need anybody to
Yeah.
tell you how
Wh-
great you are.
what I was trying to say is not the person you're actually living with outside of you, but you yourself.
Oh, is that what you
If you
meant?
like you yourself, not your
Okay.
part, they're fine. But
It did come out that way. I was like, I don't always
if
like
you
my
like the
husband.
person that you're living with, as in yourself, you're
Yeah,
not really alone. You have that wonderful connection. You don't have that need, but everything is an ability to expand that if it's the right personnel, but it's not out of
absolutely.
necessity. Yeah, so yeah, it was a little confusing. That's on me. Um, so
That's okay.
Susan, what I love about you too is, I listen to a lot of psychic mediums or coaches and stuff like that, and there's a great deal of dismissiveness, or of mental
Mhm,
health. There's not an acknowledgement of it, and there's a bypassing of it. Not I don't want to like pinpoint mediums, but a lot of people in the
mhm.
spiritual field, there's just, they want to shy away from the difficulty. And it seems like you have a great balance of the psychic and the psychological. Like, yeah, how do one speak to? Do you feel the two are connected? This intuition that we have, this connection to higher worlds and our psychological orientations, and do you feel the two could really work well hand in hand?
I
You know.
do. I feel like anything that gives you a feeling, whether it's psychoanalysis, psychology, or mediumship, um, I was just looking for that heightened feeling all the time,
Mm,
as in the mediumship world.
mm,
But I feel like if you're with somebody that can hear you and listen to you and love you and be with you, that
mm.
is kind of the most healing thing that you could ever have. It's a transformation because it's love. It's love is the best thing.
Do you feel like you've gotten that understanding, like people that you have today get you, and you are better able to really understand yourself? Because I know you mentioned earlier on in your childhood that was not the case, but do you feel now you've developed what we call this like a spiritual sense of community, which is very important, but to have people that not just are interested in the things that we do, but they love us for who we are. Like, do you feel like you've gotten a couple of glimpses of that, in your life?
You know, I um, if you would have asked me this question when I was younger, like when I was much younger,
Mm,
everything how other people how other people interpreted me mattered so much. And as I got older, I have really depended upon myself and what I think of myself.
mm,
Because if that was the case, being out in this world as a psychic medium and animal communicator, it doesn't really matter to me what anybody thinks of me, which is the greatest gift of all.
mm,
Because raised in a family where it was always about what other people thought, my mother would dress us up and we all looked beautiful and we all went to Catholic school and we looked amazing on the outside, but the inside was crushed. But our family was kind of like, well, if it looks good, it is good. Well, it's not like that. And the truth is that if you self love and you self accept
mm,
yourself, your journey will be that much easier, not having a dependence upon the outside world either accepting you, loving you, or putting you up on a pedestal or telling you how great you are. It's really like having that in yourself. So the answer to your question is my world is very small other than my
mm.
work. It's me, my dogs. I have two dogs
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and my husband and me, but it's mostly me. I mean, I give that to myself. It's that
Mm.
self-loving, self-acceptance and having fun on my own. I do have a lot of fun on my own.
I'm getting goosebumps because you're very young chronologically. I don't want to make this seem, but what I'm saying is we have a cultural myth that says I will love and accept myself once I get to a certain age. People say once you get to a certain age, then you're good,
Oh,
you're grounded, and how big of a farce that is. It doesn't come with age. It seems like it comes with wisdom and acceptance and work, and that could happen, when you're my age, younger, and I see clients in their mid 60s, 70s who still like, I don't like myself. So it doesn't work like that.
it
It
doesn't.
comes with wisdom and being able to be your own sense of approval. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to just decipher that because that's a very big
And how
important thing.
great that you have that now that you
Mm.
got it and you see it. Because
Yeah.
that is really the only thing that we really need is we need to approve of ourselves and we need to get up and clap our hands for ourselves and say, damn, I did a good job. And even if it wasn't a perfect job, like I read Louise Hay,
Mhm.
She, in her book, How to Heal Your Life, which was always kind of my Bible, years ago when I was healing myself, she even said, like, the first time she got up to speak, when she got off the podium, she did a self-talk and said, "You did a really good job, Louise." And just the fact that you got up there and you did this speech and you talked, and you're just going to get better and better at this.
Mm.
That's how you love yourself, is talk to your little girl, talk to your little boy, and tell them how great they are, because the world out there ain't going to do it for you. Most parents don't know how to do that for their children. So as an adult, you get to reparent to yourself. And I mean, years and years of people saying, read this book, read that book. I couldn't focus on the psychological aspect of this. The only way I really got it was to really kind of love myself. That's key. And not care about the outside world.
Amen. And you know what? I think when you have a title of a psychic or a medium, people will pigeonhole you, just say that's you're unidimensional, that's all that you do. But from hearing you today and the likes of our mutual friend Alison Dubois, like when I sit back
Oh,
as a
I love
therapist,
Allison.
and I listen to you guys, I'm like, you guys are powerful teachers. Like it's a shame that they just label you just as a medium or psychic. To me, you're
Who's
just
they? Who cares?
a bearer of light and wisdom.
It's just,
Eh,
who cares who they are?
what I'm
It's,
saying
we don't, yeah,
is
I hear you.
you know, you just you can't label exactly what you do other than just a beacon of wisdom, insight, and just support to those who come across your path. And if that comes through in a mediumistic way, great. But it seems like that role has really broadened for you as you're more empowered and you're becoming like this powerful light that you always were. You know, that you always had, and just shining that. So, really, power to you. Now, Susan, is there any like particular areas that we didn't touch upon, or any things that really are coming to your mind? Because I know we certainly discussed a lot of your personal journey, your transformation, the work that you do, but most importantly, you're dropping just so much wisdom here on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. But is there anything specifically that we maybe not have delved into, that you would like to share? You're feeling like, wow, you know this is where I'm happy where things are.
Um, I think we covered a lot. I think I've been motivated to speak inspirationally for the last 48 hours. Today being your podcast, and yesterday doing an event
Mhm.
that I really felt like the first 5 or 10 minutes, I really wanted to speak about the power of the light and
Mhm.
only being able to change ourselves. But I don't do that when I'm on a one-on-one with somebody. I do
Yeah.
mediumship, and I do my psychic evidential mediumship work, and I do my animal
Mhm.
readings. I mean, I do feel like my future would hold some inspirational talks and inspirational healing,
Mhm.
because I feel it's so much needed, and it also opens you up. It opens you up more for the gifts of the spirit world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you do so much, and you're good as is. But if that's your calling, I'll be a VIP front row seat to hear Susan Allen
Aw,
preach. And
thank you.
even
You're
if I
such a
can't come,
love.
we'll try to get a ticket remotely. But I'm certainly hoping that. But I know it's best for you, and you're you're being in flow right now. You're going where the universe wants you to be, and if that is that place, great. If not, you're great wherever you go because you carry this light. Now, for people who want to book a reading with you, connecting to their loved one, their pet, or I know I'm a big follower of you on social media and Instagram. You guys do a great job. Like, how could people find you? As well as is there any upcoming courses or workshops that you may be having? I'm not sure, but you would know better than I would. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's susanallenmedium.com. I have an events page there. I have an event coming up, two in November, several in December. I don't know when your podcast comes out, but I always do events. I do Gallery of Eights,
Hmm.
which means everybody gets a reading. There's 8 people. It's less of a financial commitment, but everybody gets a reading on those. So those fill up. Even the day before, somebody will think they want to come, and they always fill up. And a larger event I usually do every month. And I've been doing a lot of events with groups. Like I go to a group of 3,000 women.
Mm.
And we've been setting up smaller groups of those women, and I just do readings. I do large audience readings, or I do 10 people or 8 to 10 people.
Mm.
So we're available for that. My assistant's been putting those together. And what else? Social media is at Susan Allen
Mm.
Medium on Instagram, and my website is susanallenmedium.com. So
Excellent.
I think that's everything.
It is. Final question of the day, and I thank you so much for your generous time, is you
Sure.
do so much, you give so much to people, and I know so many people benefit from your work. You could easily pick up the mic right now and just drop it. Like at least to me, maybe you not feel that, but I'm
Aw.
wondering for you, what is your continual why that allows you to propel this work? Because it is not easy. You're dealing with people, who are
Mhm.
going through heavy stuff. So what is your why? What keeps you going today moving forward, would you say? Because I'm sure that evolves year to year,
Yeah, I think
moment to
more or
moment.
less like how people resonate with me and love me and send me emails and tell me things that I said that helped them so much and that were true or evidential. I think that's kind of what keeps me going, that I help so many people. And it makes me tear up because when I help you, I help me, honestly. Like
Mhm.
it's such a gift to be able to um, be of service to someone. It really is. I mean, it's like an amazing gift. And everyone that has booked a reading with me, it's like, I can't thank them enough for the love and support, because you're basically telling me, hey, I'm going to allow you to come into my little secret world, and I really, really trust you to be there. And I want to see what you have to say. To me, I'm very cautious of people coming from where I have come from. So for me, it's like they're my babies. Every client is a baby, even if it's a
Right.
grown 70-year-old man, they're my babies.
Mm.
So that's the gift for me.
Wow.
That's my why.
Profound. Ram Dass would say we have a term like a therapist and a client, but we don't recognize those are titles, but it's reciprocal. It's like it's a seesaw.
Yep.
Our clients are our greatest healers. We get healing from that too. So we have these identities, but really it's one big healing that goes on and one energetic transformation from the giver and the receiver. And we're both reciprocating this. So Susan, thank you so much for all you do. Viewers, please check her out as well as follow her on IG. She has terrific light that she puts out daily. You're welcome anytime. And most importantly, it's an honor to call you a friend and someone who I'm very proud and inspired of. So thank you.
I feel exactly the same about you, Jacob. You're brilliant and beautiful, and I can't wait to do one day an event with you.
By God's grace, thank you so much, Susan. Keep in touch and thank you so much for your time. Well, thank you for listening to my interview with Susan Allen. That was a great conversation. We were really able to really understanding, the gifts of Susan's mediumship, as well as how she works with humans as well as animals as well, and what animals in the spirit realm really. They're still connected to us, and we could connect to them ourselves, or you could contact Susan as well, but they continue on. So, thank you for tuning in to my wonderful conversation with Susan. Next week, please tune in as well. We'll have interviews coming your way. Please make sure to subscribe as well as hit that bell notification icon for more great information and interviews coming your way each and every week right here on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder.